The biggest transformation recently in the subcompact tractor market has been hydraulics. We've focused a lot of this year on hydraulics, and I'm realizing at this point that there's so many additional hydraulic options available for these little guys that I need to kind of go through and help you choose the right one for your tractor. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to actually mount some different hydraulic kits on this tractor, talk about what option that is best for you based on your needs. Let's get started. The approach we'll use in this episode is to divide these different options, these different kits, depending on your needs. Do you need front hydraulics on your tractor? Do you need rear hydraulics? Or do you need both? That's going to make a difference of which kit fits for you. Before I go into the details, maybe I should take just a minute to talk about some of the potential items that you might want to run with your tractor. The most obvious for the last 4 or 5 years has been a grapple, or maybe a 4-in-1 bucket, or other front attached hydraulic driven functions. These are usually needing a third function. When we talk about the first two functions, we have the lift and lower, and we have the tilt and curl, which is left and right. You typically need some sort of a third function so that you can clamp and release with a grapple. You know, we started with a grapple maybe 5 years ago, and since then the desire and understanding of how a grapple works and how useful it is for these tractors has really expanded. So a lot of people are thinking about front hydraulics. Starting last year or so, we began to focus a little bit more on some rear hydraulic attachments. We've had an offset flail mower that allows you to hydraulically move it in and out, as well as tilt it up and down. We've had a sickle mower that you can hydraulically raise the sickle bar as well as lower it. We've had a box blade that is a pull-type box blade, and with it you can lift it up and down, and you can tilt it left and right. There's also hydraulic top links, which require rear hydraulics. I could go on, but more and more of these types of attachments are making their way into the subcompact space, and there aren't many OEM hydraulic options available that are going to be flexible enough for your needs. So that might be why you would need some rear hydraulics. My tractor needs both. I don't have any third function on this new Johnny in the front. I don't have any rear hydraulics on the back, so I need both. And that, by the way, if you do need both, is the most cost-effective overall solution. So we'll get into the details now. So let's say you need front only hydraulics, okay? You need to run a grapple. You need one function additional in the front. So we typically call that a third function. Now, sometimes we're a little loosey-goosey with that term. There's two approaches to that. One is to use a diverter, and one is to have a true third function. So we'll take just a minute to kind of describe the differences. A diverter kit will take your tilt and curl function, the left and right on your joystick, and electronically switch that between tilt and curl and squeeze and release. A true third function will be a separate hydraulic valve, which will allow that third function to at least theoretically be run at the same time as your tilt and curl. Unfortunately, on these subcompact tractors with an electric third function, you're really not going to get the tilt and curl and grab at the same time. There's just no way to achieve that with the electric control, right? It's kind of an on-off control on many of the true third functions that are offered. So in my experience, I prefer the diverter. I prefer it because of the action. I can kind of push the button or release the button while I'm going back and forth on the tilt and curl. Works very nicely in that sense. Also, when I go to connect with my tractor with the single point connector, I have only an electrical connection to make when I use a diverter kit. Now, so I say I prefer a diverter, but both of my 1025Rs after this particular episode will have true third function kits installed. It's really not that much difference, and so my preference is just a little bit, and And it's interesting that after saying I have that preference, then I end up with true third functions. Let's say you decided you are interested in a diverter kit. There are two manufacturers that I'd point you to. Summit Hydraulics makes probably the least expensive diverter kit that I've seen. I don't have that specific kit in front of me, so I can't show it to you, but it's the least expensive. I hate to state prices because they're changing every day, as you guys know. The other option that I would consider would be the Artillian diverter kit. I think the Artillian kit is a little more polished. Just the way it's made to fit the tractor and the optional ball that you can get for the handle, I really like. And especially if you're getting an Artillian grapple, I like the Artillian diverter. You just have to decide whether it's worth the extra money to get a little more polished feel, and that's going to be up to you. So Summit and Artillian are the two diverter choices. Remember, we're still on front-only solutions here. True third functions. There's two options that I would like you to consider. One of them is the OEM Deere kit. It's the most expensive kit. It's also most integrated with the tractor. I don't think it's ever factory installed. Dealer installed is the only way you can get it, or you can buy the kit and do the install yourself. The positive of this kit is that it's well integrated. I mean, incredibly well integrated. You don't see from the outside any portion of the kit except for two connectors right here. That is where you connect your loader hoses. It's also very expensive. Because it's so well integrated into the tractor, you have to take a lot of the tractor apart to do the install. If you get it from the dealer, it's going to cost a lot of money to have them install it. If you do it yourself, yeah, it's going to be a big job. On the other extreme of true third functions is what I have installed here from Summit Hydraulics. Now I say installed, it's not fully installed. In fact, I just shook it there, right? But it is kind of mocked up here to where it's going to sit on the tractor, and I'll talk you through the details of how it works, how it connects. This kit from Summit is the TFK JD1. Starting at the front of the tractor here, we have a set of loader hoses. You can actually see them because I haven't got them, attached permanently here. These hoses go to the middle of the loader here, and there's a nice bracket with the fittings there. That's where you connect your grapple. We'll just zip tie them along the side of the loader, then they come down here and they plug in right here. So this is where the actual valve is on the side of the tractor. It's mounted to the frame. Okay, in front of the loader pedestal, it's mounted to the frame. This kit's not fully mounted on my tractor because it's not going to be the final solution. You're actually going to see the final solution later in this video, but I did want to get it mocked up here so you can see how it would look on your tractor. For example, the valve here is not fully attached. On mine, I had a little difficulty because of the single point connector mast here, this big bracket. So later they've decided to include some 45-degree elbows here to allow you to have a little more flexibility with the hoses. Those will be optional, so you can use them or not. These hoses will be routed under the platform. I'm showing them on top here, and they'll connect where a Power Beyond typically would connect. So that provides a negative of this solution. It's not compatible, to my knowledge, with a Power Beyond kit, at present anyway. But that's what makes this so cost effective, right? You don't need a Power Beyond kit. You can get this right now. I think it's priced in the $600 range. That's incredible for a true third function. Another disadvantage is that this SCV is kind of exposed here to the elements, in my opinion. So I'm not really thrilled with that, but it's quite a cost-effective solution. Oh, let's take a look at the joystick handle here a little bit. I've actually put it on my tractor. It's got two buttons on it. With a diverter, you only need one button, essentially on and off, but you'll need two with a third function like this one. It's in and out, or squeeze and release. So two buttons on that. The wiring, you can run it, it's just got a pigtail here. You run it to wherever you need to go. In a later episode, I'm going to tell you about a new electronic connection that there is right in here behind the hood on the 2020 and later models. We'll get to that when I get time to install that on my 2019 1025R. This connector here goes to the SCV. So all this would be routed right down through here and under the platform. The install is really not going to be difficult. That's this third function kit. So to summarize your front only options, the Deere OEM kit, it's expensive, it's integrated well, is compatible with other rear solutions that we'll talk about later. Just a really, really nice solution. This is the opposite extreme. It's not compatible with other rear solutions that require a power beyond, or if you have a backhoe, it's not compatible with that. It sticks out a little bit on the side. It is not as well integrated. The joystick handle is still fine. So this one is a pure price point. It's the lowest cost solution that I know of to get a true third function from summithydraulics.com/TTWT, and then you get a TTWT discount of 5%. So very cost effective, but it has a lot of limitations. With that thought in mind, let's move to the rear options. We'll start with the least expensive rear only solution, and that is a pair of hoses here that you can get at discounthydraulichose.com/TTWT. Again, TTWT for a 5% discount. And the point of these hoses is that they plug in to these outlets right here and just route up over your seat here, or you could route them underneath, that's fine. And you just let them hang in the back, and that allows rear attachments to use the joystick hydraulics. Oops, I haven't put my handle back on, but I'll put it back on in a minute, you'll see why. These hoses are about $100 a pair when you use the TTWT discount. In order to get both circuits, you would need 2 pairs of hoses, but we sell them 1 pair at a time because you might only need 1 circuit. Again, this is the least expensive way to get hydraulics to the rear of your tractor. But let me make it clear that you cannot use the loader functions while you have this in place, right? So it's got a limitation, but it is cost effective. This is exactly the same idea from summithydraulics.com/TTWT. It's called the RHK-JD1, Rear Hydraulic Kit JD1. Again, it's meant to go under your tractor, plug right into these SCVs here in the mid. Notice there's 4 hoses here, so you get with 1 kit, you're going to get both circuits. And it also comes with a bracket, and this bracket will attach to your ROPS in the rear, okay? So this is just a little bit nicer than the least expensive, but it has the same function. You could put this on your tractor, mount the bracket, leave the hoses on all the time. You would just have to have these dangling when you're using the loader. So you'd unplug these, plug your loader in, plug these back in. I think these are less than $500. It's not inexpensive, but it's number 2 in our way to get rear hydraulics. Gives you 2 circuits and does attach, so it's a little bit nicer than the discount hydraulic hose entry level. This one starts off with a similar concept. We're going to route 2 of the hoses, 1 circuit, from the mid SCV to the rear. Okay, so these 2 hoses, they would go under the platform as usual. They go back here. They're going to go to a mechanism back here we'll talk about in a minute. But they have a return pair of lines with female lines, and you'll hook this up to your loader. So with this approach, you won't have any hook and unhook at the mid SCV, nothing to dangle. How does that work? Let's look at the back. This is a simple manual diverter switch. So you can see this is where your rear attachment would plug in. If you want the rear attachment to be live, you plug it in here, and you would use your joystick, probably the left and right, but whichever one you have hooked to it, to control the rear attachment. If you wanted to control the loader valve, you'd switch it over here. So it's manual, but it keeps you from unhooking hoses each time you want to switch between using your loader and your rear attachment. It's actually fairly clever because it's simple, it's mechanical, it's not going to fail. This only provides 1 of the circuits to the rear. You'd have to get a second instance of this kit, I believe, to get both circuits, and then I'm not sure it would fit on the ROPS properly. So really this would be useful if you only want 1 circuit, maybe a hydraulic top link. This is the HM1 JD1 at summithydraulics.com. One SCV at the rear, uses the mid SCV to drive it, manual control. Next on our list of rear-only hydraulic upgrades is the Deere OEM rear SCV kit. I'll just be honest, this is my least favorite of all the products I'm talking about or showing today. The reason is that it's only one rear SCV. I believe the handle to control it is back here. It's not very handy. It's incompatible with the Power Beyond kit, which we're going to talk about in a minute. So you can't have it with the backhoe. You can't have it with some of the other hydraulic kits we're showing today. It's also kind of gets in the way of the hydraulic lift on the mower deck, just several other confusing factors. So I really would discourage you from getting the rear SCV kit for one rear SCV from John Deere. I'd recommend you checking out some of these other solutions we're showing instead. Just want to mention it here because it is an option, and if you really do want it, you can get it from greenpartsstore.com/TTWT. You get free shipping. So let's move on to the next one. From here on out, the kits we're going to talk about require a Power Beyond. Now this is the Deere factory Power Beyond right down here, and you can see that it's two hoses that are actually plugged together. So let's talk about Power Beyond a bit. Let's talk about the overall hydraulic system of the tractor. The hydraulic oil flows in one big loop, okay? It gets pumped into one end and it flows all the way around that loop and then is returned back to the tank. There are several controls or valves or SCVs as we call them along that loop at different positions. If you need more details about how that loop works, refer to the video that I did with Ken from Bolt On Hooks quite some time ago, but we'll put a link in the description for that. But the reason I mention it here is because we need this Power Beyond, and that's essentially a way to break that loop and allow additional functions to fit into that hydraulic loop. It's called Power Beyond. This one is the Deere kit. Now, Summit Hydraulics makes one as well. Quite frankly, the kits aren't that difficult. The Summit Hydraulic kit is 3 hoses and a series of fittings. The trick is to know where they fit with your particular tractor. The Summit kit's a little bit less expensive than the Deere kit. There is a bit of a disadvantage if you have some of the other features, say the Deere third function or the hydraulic mower lift. The Deere kit includes some extra lines to take care of that. The other disadvantage to this kit is the Deere one, it has some hard lines, right? So they are specifically molded to fit on the 1023, 1025, whereas these are flexible. Now, one advantage of this is if you have a cabbed Deere 1025R, I found out from a fellow on TractorUniverse.com that this was easily installed on his tractor, and he was told that the Deere OEM kit was not easy, or maybe not even possible to put on after the cab was installed on the tractor. This next one's one that I'm really excited about because I did a lot of the design and thought work on it. Summit, of course, put together the details, and I really appreciate their partnership on this. This is the EVK2-2 or 3 or 4. Actually, this one's not quite it, so you have to use your imagination a little bit. If you want to see the details of this kit, we have a couple of videos early on where you can see I was installing this kit, I described it. So I'm not going to talk too much about it there, but I will just kind of go over the highlights. This plugs into the Power Beyond right back here. Okay, so it extends that hydraulic loop to this whole valve bracket here. I've installed this one a little bit different. It's still on the left side of the tractor, but I installed it a little bit lower because I don't have the backhoe. I don't have quite as much interference here, so I was able to install it a little bit lower. You'll notice that it does not have the 4th valve. It has these elbows on it instead. I'll talk about that in the next segment, but stick with me. So this is a rear-only solution up to 4 valves. The controls are electric. See if I can find, yeah. So here's a switch. The switch that you would get with this would have the same number of switches that you have valves. So this kit with 4 valves should get 4 switches. Again, I'll explain why I only have 2 in a minute. My other 1025R indeed has the 4 switches. There's also a bar that goes from the ROPS here forward to hold those switches so that they're nice and handy for you to use. This is not cheap. I mean, it's somewhere between, I think, around $800 to a little less than $1,200 right now for 4. $800 for 2, $1,200 for 4. Again, those prices will vary, and don't forget code TTWT will save you 5% on that. This is fully compatible with the backhoe. As I said, this plugs into the Power Beyond. If you want to run with your backhoe, then you can plug your backhoe into here, and we say put it in series. What we mean is connect one of these leads to the backhoe, one of these leads to the backhoe, and just extend that loop, right? So that's how this all plugs together with your backhoe, but you can use it without as long as you have a Power Beyond kit. By far, my favorite rear hydraulic implementation. EVK2-2, EVK2-3, whatever, you get it. One more advantage of this particular kit, the EVK2-2, is that it can be upgraded to support front hydraulics as well. They offer it 3 ways. They offer this kit, the EVK2-2 or 3 or 4. Then they offer a separate kit which already has the front elbows here and hoses, like we'll talk about in a minute, and that's called the FR2-JD1. Now let's say you already have this kit for the rear only and you want to add the front third function kit. They have an upgrade for this that'll get you to that same place. So you can add this plus an add-on, I think they call it. Add-on for EVK, I believe is how they refer to it. So this provides a lot of flexibility. That directly leads us to what I consider the ultimate hydraulic solution for subcompact tractors that covers both the front and rear hydraulics. When you begin to add all that together, now you've got the most cost-effective solution you can possibly have. We can get it like this. We get it with 3 rear valves, and you can get with 1, 2, or 3 rear valves, and then this set of elbows here connects to hoses that we route all the way under the tractor. And then there will be a set of mid connectors identical to the mid connectors on the Deere OEM front third function kit. That's a huge advantage there. It also adds a joystick control. Let's take a look at that. I really like the controls on the FR2-JD1 kit. You get 2 valves controlled up here on the joystick, right? 4 buttons. So 2 of them control the front third function, because we've routed it all the way down from the rear, and the next 2 will control 1 of the 3 remaining rear valves. So depending on how you have it connected, you can use 1 rear SCV without ever removing your hand from the joystick. The other 2 rear SCVs are up on this switch. These are momentary switches, raise, lower, right? I just like how they're mounted. I like how this works. It's plug and play back here. You can plug it right into whichever port you want to plug it into. Also, you can plug your attachment into whichever port you want it plugged into. I don't know if you can tell, but this is my favorite kit of all for the Deere tractors and other compact tractors as well. I should talk about that in just a moment. A lot of this is sized specifically for the 1025R, 2025R. But it'll work on a lot of different tractors. On TractorUniverse.com, we've seen a lot of people who have adapted this to work on their particular machines. Over time, we'll try to get some different hose length measurements, some different couplers to specifically have solutions for given models of tractor. But for now, this particular kit is quite versatile. You might find the hoses to not be perfect length for your machine, but a lot of people have found that they can get by, especially on a 2038R, 2032R. Those are working just fine. So which do you need? Do you need front only? Do you need rear only? Do you need both front and rear? If you're thinking front only, I would be careful with that. We have shown a lot of attachments that use the rear hydraulics over the last year, and it's our intent to continue showing more and more hydraulic attachments as we go forward. Yeah, I think if you go with a front-only solution, you'll probably wish that you had some sort of rear hydraulics. Now, I hate to spend too much of your money, so I understand, and you know, you have to do what your budget can allow. Please leave your questions in the comments section below, because I've covered a lot of ground in this episode. I know that there are other hydraulic kits available than what I showed today, but I tried to cover what I considered to be the best ones. And what I mean by best is either the least expensive or the best integrated, or perhaps just a best overall solution like the front and rear Summit kit here. Yeah, again, leave your questions, and I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time on Tractor Time with Tim. You have loved righteousness and hated wickedness. Therefore God, your God, has set you above your companions by anointing you with the oil of joy. You can be a part of the show. Just sit down right here. If you hadn't heard, Martha's tail has had a serious injury. Apparently it got stuck in something and he yanked it loose and broke it. All the tendons and everything. Someone suggested that we rename him Bob. We may have to. It's infected in there. Not looking good.